The station trembled as alarms screamed across the decks. Red lights flashed through the corridors, painting the walls an urgent color. Commander Elias Trent stood alone in the cum chamber, his hands steady on the control panel. The 3 resonance cores glowed brighter than anything he had ever seen. Their energy blended into one spiraling beam that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He knew the risk. The Narathe had warned him. Opening the fold could destroy the station or worse, time itself. But as her voice filled the room again, soft and real, he couldn't stop. "Elias," she whispered. "You're so close." He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Tell me what to do." "You already know," she replied. "You always did." The hum of the cores deepened. The walls flickered, as if the metal itself couldn't decide whether to exist or vanish. Through the window, the stars outside twisted into streaks of light. The fold was opening, a shimmering rift in space that looked like liquid glass bending reality. He typed a final sequence into the console, overriding the system failsafe. The energy surged, shaking the room violently. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Then silence. The lights went out. The station seemed to hang in nothingness. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was no longer in the cum room. He stood in a vast white space. No walls, no ceiling, just endless light. The air felt soft, almost alive, and she was there. She stood only a few steps away, her long silver hair flowing like mist, her eyes glowing faintly. She looked human beautiful, fragile, yet somehow infinite. "You made it," she said softly, smiling through tears. He stared at her, barely able to breathe. "What is this place?" "The inside of the fold," she said. "The space between moments. Everything that ever was and will be exists here." Elias turned, trying to understand. The air shimmered around them, showing faint images, flashes of history, cities, stars, faces, memories. Some looked human, some alien, some impossible. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Why did you call me?" Her expression softened. "Because you left me here." He blinked. "What?" She stepped closer. "You were the one who sealed the fold the first time. You saved the galaxy from collapse, but it cost me my freedom. I chose to stay, and you promised you'd return when the time was right." Elias shook his head slowly. "That was someone else. I'm not him." She reached out and touched his chest lightly. "You are. Time bends, not breaks. The universe remembers patterns. Your soul carries the same signal, the same courage." He looked into her eyes and saw truth there, something deep and ancient. Memories stirred within him, faint but real. Flashes of light, her face covered in tears, a hand reaching out as time shattered around them. He remembered calling her name. He remembered failing to pull her out. "I remember," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I remember you." She smiled through tears. Then it wasn't for nothing. The space around them began to shake. Waves of distortion rippled through the light. "What's happening?" he asked. "The fold is unstable," she said. "You opened it, but it's not complete. The timelines are colliding. If we don't close it the right way, everything humans, Narathe, every world will dissolve into this. What do we need to do?" She looked down at the light surrounding her. "The vault must collapse from within. But if I do it alone again, I'll vanish completely." He took a step forward. "Then I'll help you." Her eyes widened. "If you do, you'll be trapped here too." Elias didn't hesitate. "Then we'll both stay. I won't let you be alone again." Tears welled in her eyes. "You always say that," she whispered. "Every time we meet," gave a faint smile. "Then maybe this time I'll keep the promise." They clasped hands. The moment their skin touched, the fold reacted. Light flared around them, spinning faster and faster. Energy surged through their bodies like a living storm. She looked at him, eyes shining. "Together," she said. "Together," he replied, outside the fold. The Narathe station buckled under impossible pressure. Solinkai stood on the observation deck, watching the rift twist above the moon's surface. He felt its power pulling at reality itself. He turned to his aides. "Prepare containment shields," he ordered, "but do not interfere." If the human is inside, the pattern may yet hold. What if it fails? One alien asked. Then none of us will remember failure, Solankai said quietly, inside the fold. Elias and the woman, her name still lost to him, moved toward the center where light bent inward like a whirlpool. Their steps echoed on invisible ground. What's your name? He asked softly. She looked at him sadly. They erased it when they sealed me. But you once called me Lyra. The sound of the name felt right on his tongue. Lyra, he repeated. She smiled faintly. I missed hearing it. The light around them grew blinding. Voices whispered in the brightness, millions of them, from every timeline. He could hear laughter, cries, thunder, song, every second of existence folding into one final moment. Lyra turned to him. The core is near. When it opens, you must think of home. Anchor it to something real. Home, he whispered. Earth. Not a place, she said gently. A feeling. Remember what makes you human, he nodded. They reached the heart of the fold. A sphere of pure light floated before them, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Cracks ran through it, spilling color into the air. This is it, she said. When it shatters, time will start again. But we may not survive the merge. Elias looked at her. Then at least we'll finish it together. Lyra smiled one last time, her expression full of peace. Then let's make it worth the wait. They placed their hands on the sphere. It broke open. The explosion of light was silent, endless. Every memory in the universe flashed before them. The birth of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations, the laughter of children on worlds long gone. Elias felt himself dissolving, but there was no pain, only warmth. Lyra's voice echoed through the brightness. Hold on to me, he did. Images of his life flowed backward, his first flight, his family, the lonely nights staring at the stars. Wondering if anyone out there cared, he saw her face in all of it, somewhere hidden behind time's veil. Then, darkness. He woke to the sound of soft beeping. The smell of metal and ozone filled the air. Elias opened his eyes. He was back on the station. The alarms were silent. The stars outside the window were still. The fold was gone. He sat up slowly. The resonance cores were dark, cracked. The console screens flickered weakly. His body ached, but he was alive. For a moment he thought it had all been a dream. Then he saw something on the panel engraved into the metal as if by heat. A single word. Lyra. He reached out and touched it gently. Days passed. The Narrathi reported that the energy storm had ended. Time readings across the system were stable again. Solankai came to visit him one last time. You restored balance, the alien said. The fold has been sealed completely, but you changed it. There is a current of motion now. Time breathes again. Elias nodded. She's gone. Solankai's eyes dimmed. Nothing truly gone is forgotten. Some voices echo forever. Elias looked out the viewport at the stars. They seemed brighter somehow. After Solankai left, Elias sat alone in the cum room. The station was quiet once more. He turned on the radio out of habit. Static filled the air then. Softly, barely a whisper, he heard it again. Elias froze. The sound was faint, distant, but warm. Don't forget. He smiled faintly, tears in his eyes. Never, he whispered back. The signal faded. Outside the window, the stars rippled slightly, as if something in the fabric of space had smiled too. Weeks later, the Earth fleet arrived to check the station. They found no record of the energy anomaly, only Elias's report. When asked what happened, he simply said, "We closed a door that should never have been opened and found something worth remembering." The commander of the fleet laughed softly. "You sound like an old poet, Trent." "Maybe," Elias said. "But some things you can only tell in whispers." When they left, Elias stayed behind to finish the last transmission log. His fingers hovered over the console before typing. Final entry, Orion 7 outpost. The signal was not a ghost. It was a promise kept. If anyone ever hears her again, listen. Not every whisper means danger. Sometimes it's the universe remembering love. He sent the log into deep space, where countless signals traveled endlessly. Then he leaned back, closed his eyes, and smiled, because even in the silence, he could still hear her voice, soft, steady, eternal, whispering his name like a secret she should never have known. The hall of the Orless Dominion was silent when Captain Elias Grant entered. Every sound of his boots echoed through the crystal floor. The alien walls shimmered like frozen light, tall and perfect, built by hands that never knew mistakes. Elias felt small among them, a single human in a place designed by a species that claimed to have erased emotions centuries ago. He was here as Earth's representative, simple diplomat, not a warrior. The mission was supposed to be routine trade routes, supply rights, nothing more. Yet the air around him carried tension. He had read reports that the Orless rarely allowed humans into their inner chambers. They saw Earth as young and unpredictable, too emotional to be trusted. Elias took a deep breath and forced his hands to stay steady. When the doors at the far end opened, he turned and forgot to breathe. The envoy who stepped through was not what he expected. He had imagined a cold gray being, tall and distant, maybe speaking through a machine. Instead, she walked with grace and calm, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the blue light. Her skin carried a soft radiance, like moonlight reflected on calm water. The air shifted as she approached. "I am Lasara," she said in a clear voice that was neither mechanical nor cold. "I speak for the Dominion." Her voice was smooth, almost melodic, and it broke the image Elias had built in his head about her kind. He nodded politely, trying to hold his formal tone. "Captain Elias Grant, representing the United Earth Coalition." "It's an honor, Ambassador Lasara." She studied him quietly for a moment, as if trying to read what kind of creature a human truly was. Her gaze didn't flicker away like most Aurelian eyes. It held steady, curious, alive. "The honor," she said, after a pause, "will depend on how this meeting goes." He smiled faintly. "Then I hope I can earn it." They moved to the central table, a wide circular surface made of translucent material that pulsed faintly with light. Documents appeared in glowing lines, data streaming in their alien script. Elias tried to follow, his translation implant whispering words in his ear. He had done hundreds of negotiations before, but never one like this. Lasara did not speak in the detached tone of a government voice. She asked questions, personal ones. "Do you find our city beautiful?" she asked at one point. "It's overwhelming," he admitted honestly. "Overwhelming," she repeated softly, testing the sound. "That is not a word we use. You humans feel too much." "Sometimes that's a good thing," he said. Her lips curved slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't indifference either. He noticed her eyes flick down to his hands, as though fascinated by how tightly he gripped the data pad. As the hours passed, the room grew warmer from the light panels above. Elias found himself talking more openly than usual. He told her about the human colonies on Mars, about how they built homes from red dust and refused to give up even after the storms destroyed them again and again. He talked about how Earth's oceans still had mysteries, and how people still looked at the stars with hope, not fear. Lasara listened without interrupting. Her head tilted slightly each time he spoke with passion. There was something about her posture, perfectly still, yet alive with quiet thought. Finally, she leaned forward. "So you fight your own world," she said softly, "and yet you still dream of others." "That's what makes us human," Elias said. "Strange," she murmured. "We erased that long ago. We thought peace would come when emotion ended, but perhaps we lost something else with it." Her words carried a weight that made him pause. He wanted to ask what she meant, but the way she looked at him froze his thoughts. She stood then, walking slowly around the table. The light from the panels above reflected off her silver eyes, giving them depth. She stopped right beside him, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth of her presence. "May I?" she asked, motioning toward the translation device at his collar. He nodded, unsure why his heart was suddenly beating faster. She reached out, her long fingers brushing lightly against his neck as she adjusted the device. Her touch was cool, almost electric. For a brief second, his breath caught. She leaned closer, not out of boldness, but out of pure curiosity, as if she were studying a creature she had never seen before. "You have a pulse," she said softly. "Your heart changes its rhythm when you are near another. Ours does not." He swallowed. "That's natural for us?" Her eyes lifted, locking with his. "Does it mean fear?" "Sometimes, but not this time." For a moment, silence filled the room. The air itself seemed to stop moving. Elias wanted to speak, to explain the feeling that rose inside him, something between awe and confusion, but his mind went blank. The words he had prepared, the long speech about trade routes and cooperation, vanished completely. Lysara noticed. Her head tilted slightly again, and then just faintly her lips curved upward. "Did I disrupt your thought process, Captain?" He almost laughed, though his throat was dry. "A little." Her expression softened. "That was not my intent." "I don't think I mind," he said before he could stop himself. Her silver eyes blinked once, slow and deliberate. "Humans speak what they feel without calculation." "It is refreshing." Elias didn't know if she meant it as praise or confusion. Either way, it made him stand a little taller. They returned to the table, but something had shifted between them. The negotiations continued, yet every glance carried meaning. Every word felt heavier, charged. She began to use softer tones, slower gestures, as if adapting to human rhythm. He started noticing her hesitations, her attempts to understand humor, even the way she paused before saying certain words, like hope or fear. At one point, she asked, "Do you believe emotion makes you strong?" He nodded. "I think it makes us human. We fight because we care. We explore because we wonder. And we survive because we love something enough to protect it." She studied him for a long time. "Love," she repeated slowly. "That word has no equal in our language. It was deleted centuries ago." "Then maybe that's what you lost," Elias said quietly. Lysara looked down at her reflection in the glowing table. "Perhaps," she whispered, "or perhaps we were afraid of what it would make us do." He wanted to answer, but the way she said it so quietly, so humanly, stopped him. It wasn't just diplomacy anymore. It was discovery. Two species realizing how different they were, and yet how easily one could awaken something in the other. When the session ended, she walked him to the entrance. The guards outside stood still, emotionless as statues. But inside the chamber, something invisible lingered between them, an energy that neither science nor protocol could explain. She stopped at the threshold. "Captain Grant," she said softly, "you have given me questions." "That's a start," he replied with a small smile. Her eyes flickered again, curious and unsure. Then she stepped closer one final time, her voice low, almost whispering. "When I study you," she said, "the data becomes noise. My logic falters." "What is that?" He smiled slightly. "We call it being human." She leaned in, close enough that he could see faint patterns in her eyes, like stars reflected on water. "Then perhaps," she said, "I am learning." He opened his mouth to reply, but the words never came. His mind went completely blank, his heart racing. Every phrase he had ever learned for diplomacy, every clever line, vanished in an instant. Lysara noticed the silence. For the briefest second, she looked pleased. Then she turned away gracefully, her long hair catching the light. When the doors closed behind her, Elias let out a shaky breath and smiled to himself. For the first time in the long history of human negotiations, the representative from Earth forgot every line of his speech because an alien had leaned in so close. He forgot what he was about to say. The dawn rose over the Dominion capital like a pale wave of silver light. The air was cold, still, and silent, too silent for a city that claimed perfection. Captain Elias Grant stood at the edge of the Odyssey's hangar bay, staring at the horizon. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. His orders from Earth were clear. Remain neutral. Do not interfere in internal Dominion matters. But those words meant nothing now. Somewhere beneath those shining towers, Lysara was losing herself, not dying, but being erased piece by piece. The thought was unbearable. She had come so far from her cold logic, had learned to smile, to ask questions, to dream. And now, the Dominion wanted to strip it all away because they feared the humanity she had discovered. He clenched his fists. Humanity had done reckless things before, crossed stars, fought odds, defied empires. This would be no different. The hangar doors opened slowly as Elias entered the command center. His first officer, Lieutenant Rhea Solis, looked up with concern. "Sir, the Dominion has placed us under diplomatic lockdown," she said. "Any unauthorized flight will be seen as aggression." Elias nodded. "I know. Then what are you planning?" He stared at the glowing map of the city on the console. To remind them what courage looks like, Rhea hesitated. "Sir, if you do this, then it's on me," he said firmly. "No one else will be held responsible." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood, Captain. But you won't be going alone." Gave her a faint smile. "I didn't expect I would." Within an hour, a small shuttle detached from the Odyssey. It carried no weapons, only a human heart and a desperate mission. The Dominion sensors caught it immediately, alarms echoing across the towers. But Elias didn't slow down. He sent one transmission, a simple message to the Orcs Council. If understanding is a crime, then humanity accepts guilt. Inside the Dominion complex, Lysara sat in her cell. The reconditioning chamber pulsed faintly with blue light. The technicians prepared the process that would silence her new emotions forever. She tried to stay calm, tried to remember logic, but the more she resisted the procedure, the more memories flooded back, the sound of Ilias's laughter, the way he spoke about stars, the warmth in his words when he said she was alive, when the chamber door opened again. A senior Orlis overseer entered. "Envoy Lysara," he said coldly, "you have defied the Dominion's doctrine. Your exposure to human influence has corrupted your equilibrium. We will restore it." Lysara raised her head. "Restore or erase. Erasure of disorder is restoration." She looked at the shining cables, at the machines built to remove everything she had learned. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "If you erase me, who will remind you what we lost?" The overseer tilted his head. "Lost? We gained peace when we removed emotion." "Peace without meaning is just silence," she whispered. The overseer frowned. "Prepare her," he ordered. The technicians moved closer. But before they could begin, the ground trembled, a low rumble that shook the walls. Lights flickered. An alert siren blared through the intercom. The overseer turned sharply. "What is happening?" "An unauthorized vessel has entered the inner airspace," a voice replied over the comms. "Human signature." Lysara's eyes widened. The Dominion sky lit up as the human shuttle broke through the defense perimeter. Drones swarmed, blocking its path, but Elias maneuvered through them with skill born from years of flight. Rhea managed the controls beside him, shouting over the alarms, "Shields down to 60%. "Hold steady," Elias called. "We're almost there." The city's towers flashed warnings, their defense grids activating. But Elias knew the Dominion rarely fought. Their systems were precise but predictable. He dove between the structures, dodging beams of blue energy that lanced through the air. He wasn't there to attack. He was there to reach her. The shuttle landed hard near the central complex, its hull sparking from the impact. Smoke rose from the floor as Elias stumbled out, his communicator active. "This is Captain Elias Grant of the United Earth Coalition." He shouted. "I'm here for Lysara of the Dominion." The guards surrounded him instantly, weapons raised. "She is under council custody," one of them said flatly. "You will stand down." Elias stood his ground. "Not until I see her. You will be detained." "Then detain me in front of her," he said, "because I'm not leaving." Inside the facility, Lysara heard the noise, the hum of energy weapons, the rising tension. Through the comms, she caught fragments of human speech. Her heart, that strange rhythm she had only recently learned to feel, raced. "Elias," she whispered. The technicians froze as the alarms continued. Then the door burst open. Elias stood there, breathing hard, his uniform covered in dust and smoke. Behind him, Dominion guards aimed their rifles. But none fired. He looked at her, really looked at her, and in that instant, all the noise around them disappeared. "Elias," she said softly. He stepped forward. "I couldn't let them take you." The overseer's voice cut through the air. "Captain Grant, this is an act of interference. You will be arrested." Elias ignored him. "You said emotion makes you afraid," he told Lasara quietly. "But look around. They're afraid of you because you learned to feel. That's strength." His eyes shimmered. "You shouldn't have come. I didn't have a choice." The overseer turned toward the guards. "Take them both." But before anyone could move, the building shook again. The alarms changed tone, not for an intruder this time, but for something worse. "External attack detected," a voice announced over the comms. "Katha swarm vessels entering orbit." Panic rippled through the facility. The Dominion officers looked at each other, uncertain for the first time. Elias turned to Lasara. "What's happening?" "The Kether. They're an ancient enemy." "We thought they were gone," she said quickly. "Then you need every ship you have." "Come on," the overseer tried to protest. "You cannot," Lisora interrupted, her voice strong. Silence. Everyone froze. The tone of command in her voice shocked even the guards. She stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing with determination. "I am still a Dominion envoy. If you value your world, you will follow my orders." No one dared to argue. For the first time in generations, emotion pure. Fierce emotion carried authority in the Dominion. Minutes later, the control center filled with chaos. The Cather swarm appeared in orbit, black, insect-like ships moving in perfect formation. Dominion fleets scrambled, but confusion reigned. Their commanders hesitated, unable to adapt fast enough. Lysara moved to the command table, hands flying across the controls. Her logic guided her, but now something else fueled her decision's instinct. "Redirect power to the forward grid." She commanded. "Use the thermal relays, not the cold conduits." The Cather adapt to patterns, break the rhythm. Elias stood beside her, feeding data from the Odyssey systems. "We can create a feedback pulse. It'll throw them off balance for a few minutes." "Do it," she said. The two worked in perfect rhythm, human courage and alien precision. The Dominion officers watched in disbelief as their calm, logical envoy shouted orders with passion, her voice fierce and alive when the pulse hit. Several Cather ships burst into flame, spiraling out of formation. The entire control room erupted in stunned silence. "It worked," Elias said breathlessly. Lasara turned toward him, and for the first time since they met, she smiled fully, not a faint curve, but a real, radiant smile. It did. The overseer, still pale, spoke in awe. "How did you?" She looked at Elias. "I learned from humanity." Hours later, the battle ended. The Cather retreated into the void, defeated. The Dominion city stood scarred but standing. Across the fleet, whispers spread that an envoy had fought beside a human. That emotion had saved them where logic failed. Lasara and Elias stood together on the viewing deck, watching the smoke rise from the horizon. The stars glimmered faintly beyond the atmosphere. "You broke every law they had," Elias said quietly. "And you broke every order you were given," she replied. He smiled. "Seems fair?" She looked at him then, her eyes soft but bright. "They will change now. Slowly, but they will remember today. Maybe one day they will thank you." "They should thank you," he said. "You're the one who saved them." Sarah shook her head. "No, we did." For a while, neither spoke. The silence between them was peaceful. It's filled with something neither of them could explain. Finally, she turned to him and asked, "When you look at the stars now, Captain, what do you see?" He smiled faintly. "Something worth crossing galaxies for." She stepped closer, her gaze locked on his. "I am not supposed to feel this," she whispered. "Then don't call it feeling," he said softly. "Call it truth." She leaned in, close again, just like that first day. The same calm, the same warmth. He wanted to speak, to tell her what this moment meant. But the words disappeared once more. Lysara saw it in his eyes and laughed quietly. "You forgot again," he nodded, smiling. Every time. The stars above reflected in her eyes as she whispered, "Then I have done my part." And as the human ship rose through the silver dawn, carrying two beings who had changed each other forever, the Orless Dominion wrote a new word into their history, one they had erased long ago. They wrote love.